Welcome to episode 139 of Drew's Sports Crew here on this Sunday night. I was just live a few minutes ago. Mike File joined me, a well respected and experienced WIA sports official of 35 years of experience. Joined me for another episode of the Wisconsin Sports Spotlight. He's a fantastic guest. Of course, he had great stories, and just overall, it was a really fun 30 minutes. So that episode, right, if you want to listen to the live stream, of course it's out, but that will be out Tuesday. So if you want to catch that Tuesday, I'll have that out on all social media platforms. I will let you know about it. Otherwise, right, you know that tonight, episode 139 is here. And then the usual Wednesday, 4 p.m. is when Journey to a Million you'll find it coming your way. Right, that's been the consistent schedule. We'll keep it like that this week. So there's your scheduling. I promised you an episode with Mike File, and it came, and it was just a fantastic product. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Mike, just again, great insights on how to handle, right? We talked about the story of a shortage was a theme we talked about earlier in spring. Mike brings some of his takes and answers, and just overall some great anecdotes of what he's experienced over, again, 35 years. But good to see, other Southwest Wisconsin. We've talked Northeast Wisconsin. Let's go Southwest Wisconsin, new Wisconsin sports audience. So I want to welcome anyone who's listening from that area. Especially listening to that episode. But we have the Wisconsin sports to talk about today. Packers coming off a phenomenal 20-3 win. I have all the details. And then also the Bucs winning their first ever in-season tournament game. Right? They play one, they win their first one. And I'll break down more of how that goes about. I should have broken it down more last week of just overall the logistics, what it is, how it works, right? But going through what it consists of, right? I'll be breaking that down as the Bucs had 3 games this week. They go 2-1 on the week. The prediction challenge was okay, could have been better. Had the Bucs losing Miami, winning at Toronto. Unfortunately, flip-flop those. I did have the win in New York correct, so I'll take that. But otherwise, right, going through this week, then I'll be breaking down those games as well. So that's what we're looking at. And going through also the Packer 20-3 win. I'll be breaking down key takeaways. You might have seen a surprise, maybe player of the game, considering it's been primarily offensive players this year. I mean, we had Rashawn Gary in there for a player of the game earlier this year. Quay Walker, when he had that crazy amount of tackles in Atlanta, right? I mean, so there's been some defensive players, but we see number 3, right, in this one, Jonathan Owens, led the team in total tackles, had a sack, right? Had the lone Packers sack, had his first career forced fumble, right? A great game for Owens and forcing a turnover on the defensive end. Let's start with that Green Bay Packer game as I'm getting into it now. I'm getting fired up. And that was I think the Packers, it's safe to say although that Chicago win, probably their best win of the season, just overall team victory. Again, 20-3. I know the Rams were starting Brett Rypien, second string backup quarterback here without Stafford. That definitely played a huge part in this one. And then also the Rams run attack. So this has been a theme for Green Bay. I talked about this last week, right? They hold Minnesota in check on the ground, right? Minnesota's averaging like under 3 yards per carry. Listen to this. 26 carries for the Los Angeles Rams gets them 68 yards for a whopping 2.6 yards per attempt. That is a great metric there for Green Bay, a defense that we have known to struggle against the run over the years, puts up one of its best showings of the season. Again, 26 of 68 was that for 2.6 yards per attempt. And that's been a positive and pleasant surprise for this Green Bay defense. Going on the receiving side, honestly, with the backup quarterback, right, 13 of 28 was Rypien with 0 touchdowns and 1 interception. He didn't look good. I mean, offensive line wasn't necessarily great, but honestly, he just missed some throws. It seemed like he didn't feel comfortable in the pocket, didn't evade pressure. Overall, just he didn't look comfortable, and that's where we've seen that from Jordan Love in some games this season as well. Cup was held in check, 2 receptions, 48 yards with 7 targets. Puka Nacua, 3 for 32 on 7 targets as well. Tutu Atwell also yielded 7 targets. Rypien fumbled twice too. I mean, that was another story. This defense for LA was solid. They had some sacks in there. They had 4 sacks on the day. Byron Young had 2 of the 4. And of course, Aaron Donald got in there, caused some mayhem as usual. That really kept this LA team in the game for a bit. Right, for 3 quarters, it was 10-3 end of 3. So looking at that. But then on Green Bay, the offensive side, right? How this game looked. Love was efficient, 20 for 26, but it was only 8.8 was the average yards per throw, right? Or per attempt. With 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. He did take those 4 sacks. For Jordan Love, I think the grade is a B or B minus on the day. He missed a throw to Watson. You might be like, he was 20 for 26 with 1 touchdown. Why such a low grade? I'd give him a B. I'd say, he did what was asked, but he didn't exceed anything, right? I mean, he didn't exceed expectations. I guess after these last few weeks, I'd say he exceeded expectations, but just grading on how a quarterback can and should impact a game, I think he was right in the middle of, it was solid. And I think, what's really changed the game for Green Bay too was I whined about this last week, right? I mean, Aaron Jones needs to lead this team in touches. And guess what? It worked. He led the team. He led the team in targets with 6. He led the team with 20 carries. He had 26, combined opportunities, including the targets, but then also on the reception side, he had a total with plus carries, 24 of touches of, right, what was it, 58 plays. He touched him on nearly half. Like that's what you need to win the game for the Packers. He was efficient to an extent. 3.7 yards per carries, not great, but you can live with it, I'd say. AJ Dillon, it was how it should be. It was Aaron Jones with a sprinkle of AJ Dillon. Dillon 9 for 40, 4.4 yards per carry. He had a nice 12-yard run today. Definitely stood out for me. And then Dillon had 1 target, 1 reception. That's what I want. Keep the the defense honest. Get Dillon out there a little bit, and overall worked out. Watson was a deep play threat with 37-yard reception, his lone reception of the game. He did get hurt again. My one complaint was Dontavian Wicks being the lead receiver of the day. 4 for 49, just in receptions, was tied with Jones. It was really Luke Musgrave who was 3 for 51 with a touchdown. Good variety. That's what you need for Green Bay. Right. Musgrave 3 for 51 with that touchdown. But also just overall, loves the variety. A sprinkle of Jaden Reed in there, 3 for 19. Dobbs 3 for 36. He should be your focal point, and I'm glad the Packers changed that up. So I was overall pleased with the offensive disbursement today. I was not pleased with 2 lost fumbles. Jones losing 1 and Wicks losing 1. Wicks was inexcusable, I felt. Jones, what happens. But again, defense side, great day. I mean, again, when you're facing a backup quarterback, you like to see that. And just overall Packers. I want to credit Lucas Van Ness on a play. He had a pressure QB hit, and it was just an absolute bull rush. I mean, everybody, or looking back at replay, it was who was that? That was insane. And yeah, it was Lucas Van Ness. You could see it right away, him getting that pressure. You're seeing those guys, continue to grow. Rashawn Gary too, right, signing that extension. It's going to be good to see him, and just happy to see the overall progress. And shout out to Sean Nixon, biggest kick return of the year too. Although that was the Wicks drive where he fumbled that. So Anders Carlson didn't get there yet. 2 for 3 on the field goals, missed 1 before half. That was tough to see, but otherwise, He's been solid. It's you make some, you miss some. I think the Packers. He's here to stay at least for the rest of the year. Packers moved to 3-5, right? That's the good news. They get the win today. All right, I guess 3-5. Minnesota did win though, so that doesn't really help too much. Packers 3-5. Chicago lost 2-7 is where you'll find them, and then Minnesota 5-4. Detroit 6-2. Packers surprisingly have allowed the least amount of points, out of all four teams in the NFC North this season with 159. They've allowed less than Detroit also, who was at 165, but they have only scored 160 points, which is the least. The Bears have scored 188, Green Bay 160, Minnesota 206, Detroit 200. And Detroit's also on a bye this week. And Packers had their bye already. So just adding that to the mix to maybe, that explains a little bit of it, as Packers have had their bye already. But want to just note that, right, week 9 goes as expected. I wish week 7 would have, and weeks 5 and week 2. Those were, again, at Denver, at Las Vegas, and at Atlanta, respectively. Those games I anticipated wins. We have a rare one next week. We have the Packers on CBS. Noon kickoff at Pittsburgh. We'll get that game, but I'm sure there's going to be better games for others to watch. At Pittsburgh, it's going to be tough. They're 5-3. I mean, you talk about well coached again. Is that Pittsburgh team? Deontay Johnson's back with them. So just of note, like the Steeler team has, right? I mean, they've gotten healthier. Pat Freiermuth is someone who's still out, and they had their linebacker Cole Holcomb suffer also a knee injury. Just wishing him the best on that, as he's gonna be out for the rest of the year. But they're dealing with like Minkah Fitzpatrick's out. Like there's some injuries this Rams team is dealing with as they're banged up midway, especially that defense, which Green Bay likewise can is experienced similar as, again, dealing with some injuries in the defense. Quay Walker didn't play. And Campbell is back, but just working on getting some of those guys back for the Packers. Looking at a preview of that game, let me look what the opening line is looking at. Steelers -3. So again, they're a home team. So it kind of makes sense that they're favorited. And I'm monitoring that. I think the Packers can make this game. Which maybe that's just my Packer fan in me. If the Packer team that played against Chicago or this past week shows up, it'll be a game. But Packers on the road have not been that great, so maybe that's something just to monitor. But hoping Watson is good to go, though. That's something we're gonna have to monitor. As again, he did suffer an injury on this Sunday win for Green Bay. So that's the Packer talk here for the episode, and right, you all know the drill. Let's go over to the Milwaukee Bucks, talk about how this went. I do have an update though, with Jay Crowder. So Jay Crowder, okay, this is a small update. So during that opening game, right, it was against Philly and Milwaukee. Crowder actually got fined $2,000 for flopping. Just wanted to note, they did get him for a fine. Surprised that happened. I just seeing the Bucks recent transactions, that's something that popped up. Going through again that 3-1 week, it starts off Monday, right? Bucks kick off the 122-114 win against Miami. Tyler Hero shows up in yet another return to Milwaukee. Again, the Whitnall graduate, which is near Milwaukee. Bucks won by 8. I think will really help the Bucks out, which was a last minute or pretty late ruling of Bam Adebayo being ruled out for the night. That definitely helped out the Bucks, and especially helped out an initiative to score in the paint. Giannis finished with 33 to lead the Bucks in scoring. He was the player of the week, as you see in the thumbnail, with having a consistently solid week. And just overall, it was a good team win. Dame played very well on Monday. He could have easily been the player of the week too. It was close. And then we get to Wednesday in Toronto. Bucks give up 130 points in Toronto. It was like, oh my goodness. Look at the stat sheet. Toronto shot 56%. They shot 40 from three. The Bucks won the turnover battle, but that didn't matter. Rebounds have been an issue for Milwaukee this year. 50-29 was the rebound tally. We'll talk about Friday too. Disaster on the glass. So that's kind of what we saw from this team collectively, especially when Toronto gets an extra 15 shots. They win the offensive rebounding from 15-7. You're not going to win a lot of games if your opponent takes 15 more shots than you and also has 8 more offensive rebounds. That's just how it is in the NBA, especially. So that's been an initiative this team especially needs to improve upon. I think Brook Lopez too, like his rebounding. He only had 3 total rebounds on Wednesday. He's just not in the paint a lot in defense, and he's not crashing the glass. It's been rough. He was 1 for 8 on Wednesday with only 17 minutes of play. And you might be surprised, but your leading scorer on Wednesday, I'll wait for it, Malik Beasley. 7 for 10, 6 for 9 from 3. His best game of the season came in a game where nobody had necessarily a great game. Giannis was 5 for 11 with 16 points. Dame was 4 for 9 with 15. He had a minus 26 plus minus, which was the worst for the Bucks. So my point is, Dame's had some rough points, and Wednesday was one of them. Just that game was Brook Lopez's worst game of the season. Just a disaster for Milwaukee, quite frankly. But then we go to Friday, the in-season tournament. I'll talk about the format here. So the Bucks are in a pool, and it's based off of similar records of last year to determine this pool. So it's Milwaukee, New York, Miami, Charlotte, and Washington, I believe is the pool. These 5 teams. It ends up being World Cup style, right? So each team plays each other once in the pool, and then there's a total again of each pool. So there's 6 pools, right? 6 times 5, you get your 30 teams. The winner of each pool moves on to the playoffs, and it's single elimination. And there's also 2 wild card teams, so 2 of the best from each pool. Or not from each pool, but 2 of the best, then also move on. And that's how we get, again, to the 8 teams tournaments in Vegas. And then these games count for the regular season. And then what happens is when we get to the finals too, or to the in-season tournament playoff, the teams that did not make the playoffs will have regular season games created. So everybody's on the same schedule in terms of having equal amount of games. So it's just a strategic way the NBA could get around doing that to get everybody to make these games count for 2 things. And this was part of the group play, and they had all the courts. The NBA's pushing out initiatives to teams like, hey, make this thing matter. I got a t-shirt in back there. I'll be wearing it for an episode, I'm sure. But they're really pushing this thing. Coaches get paid. Of course, the players get paid if they win and move on. There's a trophy. They'll get honored during the finals, I guess. And some players seem to have not minded it, but some have been like, okay, didn't even know this was a thing. So it's an interesting dynamic of how overall I feel it's worked out. But the game itself, did not disappoint. Again, Jalen Brunson had himself a day for New York. Couldn't be stopped. 45 points. He was 17 of 30, 9 for 11 from the 3-point, or not from the free throw line, not from a 3-point. Quentin Grimes was 5 for 10, though. He could not miss. Julius Randle had a game to forget, I'd say. 16 points, 5 for 20, 1 for 9 from 3. He did stand out in the glass, as a lot of players did for them. They had a whopping 16 offensive rebounds, and that was compared to Milwaukee's 7. And again, they lose the offensive rebound battle again. Brook Lopez, where was he? He finished with 5 rebounds. Definitely seemed he's missing some box outs, things like that. But the minute disbursement in this game was what I found interesting. I talked about this at the start last week, was how are the Bucks going to play this in-season tournament game? And they played it pretty playoff-esque, not to an extent of like 40 plus minutes, but Giannis, Brook, and Dame all played 36 minutes. Giannis again 6 for 10, 22 points. He did have 7 turnovers. That was not talked about a lot. He did have 8 rebounds to go with 6 assists. Dame had 4 turnovers too. They accounted for what was that? 11 of the 14 turnovers for Milwaukee, which they're the primary ball handlers, so I get it, but um, that was weird to see. I want to highlight Chris Middleton in 21 minutes had 9 rebounds for Milwaukee, 3 offensive. I think that's something that we don't really talk about a lot, like after the game, but definitely needs to be recognized. In his 21 minutes, 12 points, 5 for 10 from the field, 9 boards, 4 assists. I really liked what Middleton, did in the first half when he was mainly out there. Um, Otherwise, it was the Jay Crowder. I've complimented him all throughout the preseason. From now, he was 5 for 8, 4 for 6 from 3. Had a great game. Go along MarJon Beauchamp, 5 for 7, 3 for 5 from 3. Both those guys in the second quarter were just feed me the ball. I'm going to shoot a 3. I'm going to make it. That's what happened. And in their combined, 37 minutes they played, that came up huge. I mean, Beauchamp played 13, Crowder played 24, but like they're all the time they had out on the field or on the court rather was a win for Milwaukee. Cam Payne had 12 minutes of nothing. That was my biggest critique other than Lopez. 0 points, 1 turnover, 2 fouls, 1 assist. I mean, it was 12 minutes of nothing. He didn't do anything, unfortunately. And he's not going to win you games defensively. It's not necessarily his forte. So I was like, oh boy. But yeah, the rebounding has been an issue. They had 3 guys with double-digit rebounds. It was 56 to 41. The Bucks are gonna lose games this year based on offensive rebounding, and so far we've seen that. They had. I'm not asking for them to get more offensive rebounds than the other team, but I'm asking them to not give up 15 plus a game. That's an issue. And that's again Brook Lopez operating outside the paint. Maybe Giannis being very active on defense and needing to be in the role in this new system has limited it. Maybe having some just right. Damian Lillard's not a great offensive rebounder. I mean, definitely personnel plays a thing. I don't think it's this. We see this discrepancy with Drew Holiday out there, but look what Dame did at the end of the game. I mean, Dame can close out and win you games, right? 12 for 12 from the free throw line. I mean, we talked about bringing him in. He's going to be the guy who gets the ball, right, in free throw situations. And it just worked out perfect. Knicks need to foul someone. And Bucks give it to Dame. And it's like, okay, you feel confident, right? With his 90% plus clip. 12 for 12 from the line was him. He was 7 for 15, 4 for 7 from 3. Issue with Dame was he was driving. I mean, he looked like he was trying to be 2017 Russell Westbrook. And it was like, that's not who you are. Kept trying to draw contact. They weren't calling fouls. But overall, Dame hung in there, finished with a smooth 30 points. Played himself a great game. You love to see it. He had 0 fouls all night. That was the shocking stat for me. In 36 minutes, he didn't pick up a single foul. Only player for the Bucks to not draw or to pick up a foul. So again, 36 minutes just really stood out. Like Lillard not fouling on defense, and then also just like being able to hang in there because we've seen Giannis get dealt with the good old foul trouble, and having a guy like Lillard not having to worry about that has been a huge asset so far. Going through what we got on the schedule this week, it's a tough schedule in terms of just how the layout of the week is. Tomorrow they play 6:30 p.m. at Brooklyn. I like the Bucks in that one, but then we have a nice back-to-back in the middle of the week. At home versus Detroit, like that, but then you go and you play at 6 p.m. against Indiana on Thursday. I don't like that. That's going to be tough for Milwaukee. Two, of the back-to-back, it's just not ideal. Getting some back-to-backs out early in the year. They had a Sunday to Monday last week. Now we get a Wednesday to Thursday. So just getting them out of the way is the best part. But not not that ideal in the schedule. They go then Thursday to Saturday. So Saturday, November 11th, they play at Orlando, 5 p.m. I like the 5 p.m. Saturday games. I'm gonna watch that. Likewise, I'm gonna try to do my best to watch all of them, of course. But um, Saturday, 5 p.m. That's such a great time for a game. I feel so. Just wanted to highlight that, and overall, hoping for a great week of Bucks basketball. I'm gonna have the Bucks prediction challenge out tomorrow morning. I'll have some power rankings, of course, coming your way too. But otherwise, I hope you all have a great week. Again, this episode will be out right away, but if you're listening to Mike File, right, Wisconsin Sports Spotlight, you're going to be able to catch that Tuesday. I'll be releasing that. And Journey to Million on Wednesday, 4 p.m. Again, Instagram, X, and TikTok at Drew Sports Crew, YouTube, and Facebook. That's going to wrap it up here for myself, Drew Skyberg, here on this Sunday night. Thank you all for listening to another episode of Drew Sports Crew, the perfect podcast for you.